Now then, let's take a much closer look now at the new Beta Belay jacket that we've designed at PhD. It's joined, the Beta Belay is a very, very lightweight belay jacket that joins our already well established and popular Primaloft based belay jackets. Now there's a few details to look at, and I'll point you through a few pointers here of specific design features and also temperature details that are important to this jacket. First of all, we've got now 4 synthetic filled belay jackets: the Zeta, the Alpha, the Epsilon, and now the Beta, this one. The Beta's the very light one, and it's designed as a layering piece. And I'll just describe the temperatures first of all. Just running through that range, they're all filled with Primaloft. I'll come back to that in a minute. But when you look at the weight, the filling weight on synthetics like Primaloft, you look at the weight per square metre, and in our range, which starts with the warmest one, which is the Zeta Belay jacket, it's filled with 200 grams per square metre of wadding. So it's thick, it's a thick wadding, and that creates greater depth and more air held in place around your body. The next one down is the Alpha, and that is filled with 133 gram Primaloft, 133 grams per square metre of Primaloft, so it's a bit thinner but still very, very chunky. The Alpha is rated at minus 10 degrees C, that's its typical operating temperature. The Zeta is rated much, much warmer. And then the next one down is the Epsilon, and that is filled with 100 grams. So all the time here we're getting a slightly lighter level of Primaloft, lower weight, so thinner. So the Epsilon, that's rated at minus 5. And here the Beta is rated at 0 degrees C, and it's got 60 gram Primaloft in it. Now that doesn't actually tell the whole story, because the design of the Beta is as a layering piece. The principle here is to go with those well-proven and well-liked mountaineers and climbers techniques of layering up and layering down to deal with getting too hot and too cold and so on. And the Beta it's the lightest of the lot, specifically designed for layering up. And I'll run through that here. For instance, there's a couple of suggestions I can look at with you in terms of what temperatures can we get to. So the filling in the Beta is 60 gram Primaloft, and it's designed to go over something like our Gamma jacket, a really, really lightweight 60 gram filled Primaloft lightweight jacket. So it's designed to go over something like the Gamma jacket, Primaloft jacket, or something like the Sigma jacket, which is filled with 100 gram Primaloft. So there's 100 gram Primaloft in there. Now, what does that get you? Well, if you add, under here I've got a Gamma jacket. So we've got 2 layers. Here we've got 2 layers. We've got 60 gram in the inner jacket, and we've got 60 gram in the Belay jacket. That's 120 grams now. Plus, actually, on top of that, you've got the layers of fabric, extra layers of fabric here from the outer and the inner. So 2 extra layers of fabric, which does actually add insulation value to the system. You've got, but just looking at the Primaloft, you've got 120 grams of Primaloft there in the 2 layers combined. If you look at the Epsilon, that's 100 gram inside there, and that's got a top rating of minus 5. If you look at the Alpha, that's 133 grams, and that's got a top rating of minus 10. Here we've got 2 layers of 60 gram Primaloft. That gives you 120 grams. So it's very, very close to the Alpha. You've also got that other layer. You've got the 2 layers of fabric from the Gamma, and you've got this airspace between the 2 layers. So you really are approaching that warmth. You've got 120 grams there, so you're really approaching that sort of warmth again. So it's close to it. It's essentially a minus 10 system. But the advantage here is you can use part of the system on the walk-in when you warm and creating a lot of heat, and then put the second part of the system on top of you when you belay. So it's a very efficient way of just adding that extra layer of warmth on top of a layer of warmth that you've used all the time, either for climbing or for walking in and so on. So it's designed specifically as that extra layer going on top. Now I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll just have another look at say, the Sigma and the Beta together. The Sigma jacket, I have a couple here, that one's made in MX, it's the most breathable system, very good for layering. That one's made in Ultra Shell, it's a little bit heavier and it's got a proofing on it, so it doesn't breathe at quite the same level, but it's got some extra potential for dealing with wet conditions. But let's just have a look at one of those. That's got 100 grams inside it, and this has got 60 gram per square metre of Primaloft. Together they're 160 grams per square metre of Primaloft. That takes it beyond the Alpha Belay and it's approaching the Zeta Belay. Plus you've got extra layers of fabric in this system and space between the two jackets. So you've really got a very efficient system here. You've got that system that really gives you flexibility for the walk in and so on when you're getting warm, but also for when you're getting cold on the belay ledge. So that's the idea of the layering system, and that's why this has been made so lightweight. Let's just run through it a little bit, because there's two elements to Belay Jackets. Of course, Belay Jackets were originally designed by Peter Hutchinson along with Andy Kirkpatrick, talking on those principles of how can you give really good warmth to the belayer who's really suffering and cooling down quickly and stuck in one place, so they're really vulnerable to the cold. How can you produce something? But the idea that Andy and Pete came up with was one belay jacket for two people. The belayer wears it, the climber doesn't. So there's two key elements to belay jackets. One is the insulation value of that jacket, and the second is the protective nature of the design, the actual features and design elements that make it such a protective piece of kit. I'll just run through that here. The Beta Belay, of course, has got this extra design input, which is lightweight as you can go, and it's designed with that principle of layering up that we're all so used to. It's first of all, I can just say that the shape of the jacket, shape of it is designed to really act as a fortress to really protect the person belaying. So it's quite long in length. It comes down to the top of the hips, really, top of the thighs there. Look, it's very long in design, so it really gives you a lot of protection down onto the tops of your legs there. It's got a grown-on hood, and the hood is large. I'll put it up. It's designed to go over a helmet, and I'll just show you. So it's very voluminous, it's very large, it's designed to go over the top of a helmet, it's got a wired peak on it, it's large, and it can be cinched right down onto the helmet to really protect you. The front of the jacket is designed to come up high to really give you maximum protection, really designed to come up towards your nose really and give you proper, so you can really get enclosed in this piece of gear. It's a real fortress of a design style here. The fabric here is Dri-LX. Dri-LX is a laminated, waterproof, breathable laminate. So that gives us a lot of waterproof potential, but most importantly it can be taped as well. That's why Dri-LX is such a superb fabric. Very, very lightweight, but tapeable as well. Now, it isn't a fully taped waterproof garment like a shell, like a fully taped waterproof shell. It isn't one of those, because the design construction is done in a very simple way to make it light, but also to give as much loft as possible. With synthetics, it's just the same as down. It's all about the air that you trap inside the garment around your body. The deeper the wadding, the more air can be held and the warmer you get. And to do that, it pays to keep the wadding lofting as much as possible, so you don't quilt it, we don't create stitch lines across it to reduce the wadding. We allow the wadding to loft as much as possible, and to do that we stitch it into the side seam here and into the zip seam there, and then it's held in place up here. But what we do, we've got waterproof fabric, and we have taped this shoulder area. So across the seam there on the top of the shoulder and around the seam at the top there, that's taped. And that's because if you're climbing in spindrift or water coming down the climb or the gully that you're in, it's this bit that's most vulnerable to water getting onto it. If you look at the sleeve, it's actually a one-piece, what they call a one-piece sleeve. One piece of fabric forms that sleeve. There is no seam along the top. There's just one there, look. That sleeve is cut out of one piece of fabric. That seam is underneath the arm, so it's not vulnerable to water. and we don't tape it. And the reason we don't tape it is because in that seam the wadding is attached. The wadding is attached in place in that seam. So we don't want the wadding to be loose in here. We need to hold it in place with the garment. And that's why that seam is underneath you. And the same with these side seams. The wadding is attached to that side seam there. It's not taped, but it's not vulnerable because it's under the arm and it's vertical. It's this bit here that's most vulnerable. So the tops is waterproof fabric, Dri-LX, and it's taped across the top. The zips are YKK AquaGuard zips. Those are water resistant zips. Not fully waterproof. You couldn't go, they wouldn't use them in dive suits or fisherman's waders or something like that. They're not for underwater, but they do deal with water very well. Not much water gets past them. They're really effective, and they're also very good for cutting the wind. Underneath the zip is a insulated baffle to stop any cool air getting through. AquaGuard zips on the centre front, AquaGuard zips on the pockets and on this pocket up here. Always like these pockets on the top here so you can get, if these pockets are blanked off by your rucksack for instance, or whatever, these pockets are accessible for a GPS or whatever you want to stash in there. What else can I tell you? As I say, the whole design is based, there's two key features. One is the protective nature of the design, and in many ways they're designed like a waterproof shell. They're really designed to protect you. I use one of these, and I've used it in Scottish torrential rain and kept amazingly dry. It's because of that zipped shoulder where the water is, where it's vulnerable to water. The rest of the jacket, it just remains very good for me. I'm not saying they're waterproof, but they do seem to cope very well with wet conditions. A very good climbers system actually, so it's that layering system. If you don't need it on and you're climbing in lighter levels of gear, use the inside jacket. If it's getting colder and you need more protection, or the belayer of course, you can just share this between two people and one person put it on at that belaying stage. Nowadays belayers for climbing and ice climbing and so on, a lot of people really prefer their own belay jacket rather than sharing one, and that's fair enough. Not everyone's doing what Andy Kirkpatrick is doing, so it's more common now for people to use just their own belay jacket rather than sharing it. But that is the principles of a belay jacket. On the back of it is a loop for a clip loop for if you take it off you can clip it onto a piece of tat and pass it on to the other person coming into belay while you set off to climb. So there's features like that which are specifically belay focused. We've got just a couple of extra details here. We've got Velcro cuffs, so those can be so you can work with the mitts or big gloves that you're using, so you can cinch them right down and that can go inside the glove, or they can be fairly open to go over the top of a mitt or a glove. One other feature here, or a couple of other features, if you can see, we've got this two-way zip, and the idea of that is to be able to unzip the belay jacket, and we've got a tab here and a stud to close it down, and the idea is that what you want is the full length of that jacket to protect you, but you need access for your rope to come to your harness. Your harness is actually your harness rope is going to come to your tummy, really, to about here. The jacket, it can be kept as long as possible to give you real protection. You don't need to cinch it up and to get it out of the way of the rope. You can accommodate the rope with this system. And the last thing to tell you is about the zip pulls. The zip pulls are made out of Reflect for safety, and they're long. I've made them long with a knot on the end of them so you can grab them with a big mitt or a glove, so they're easy to manage. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the very basic details of the Beta Belay jacket. It's the insulation value of it has been explained. The design principle is key to the way that these things work. And then thirdly here, we've taken on the very fact of layering up and layering down as a standard principle in mountaineering. So it's a very, very lightweight piece of equipment, packable, small space used in your rucksack. And it's this layering up, layering down, and as you know, you don't want to get hot and sweaty on the approach in winter. You actually want to stay comfortable if you can. The inner jacket, if you use something like a Gamma or a Sigma, Those are insulated jackets, lightweight, very lightweight, breathable but windproof, and that's their real strong attribute. They cut the wind, so they make a big impact on insulation. So there you go, that's a quick look at the Beta Belay and the principal design behind it. All right, cheers.